So it's a new year. It feels like a new year. It's a new beginning. Um, and in some ways, it's kind of like our life and like our practice is, we're constantly recommitting ourselves uh, to live up, perhaps, connect with our intentions, connect with our with that flame. I like to talk about that flame inside our heart, to reconnect with pursuit the pursuit of calm, clarity, compassion, enlightened view. So we recommit, we reconnect. The new year is always a good time to work with that, to really look at what your intentions are and look at your life. And are you connected? Are you moving with? Are you in harmony with what you know to be true, with what you know to be of value, with what you know to be authentic? And in some ways, we work with that recommitment every morning. Wake up, the feet hit the floor, but before your feet hit the floor, it's a good time to practice when your eyes open. Here you are. There you are. And not in an unkind, pushy, forceful way, but with an attitude of kindness, and also an attitude, of or an understanding that we're not just doing it for ourselves. I read a quote from a nun the other day, and talking about how one day she was going to do her practice session, and she didn't feel like doing it. She just didn't feel like it. And she realized that she wasn't practicing for herself. She was practicing for everybody. And she said when she took on that attitude, understood that attitude, that her energy shifted and that she was able to let go of her sloth and torpor, if you will, and practice. So at times where we don't feel like practicing, at times where we don't feel like paying attention, um, realize that you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for those you love, for those who've gone before you, for those who are coming after you. The Bodhisattva vow. Realize the importance of developing clarity and compassion. Mining that aspect of ourselves and allowing that to shine forward. So we work with that each and every day. And that's the other thing about that's the other thing about the practice. Um, it's something we do all the time. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be concentrated and focused all the time. But we could keep coming back to just being mindful, just being aware of what we're doing in the moment. Just being mindful and aware of what we are doing and what that's supporting, or what that energy is creating. Is it negative? Is it wholesome? Is it unwholesome? Is it negative? Is it positive? And sometimes it's enough just to smile at somebody, right? Just to be kind to somebody that you see. You're standing in a lineup or you're opening a door for somebody. Kindness, compassion, awareness. Doesn't have to be always a deep state of samadhi, but leading with compassion, leading with empathy, leading with kindness. I think the samadhi is really important. I think the meditation practice, the formal concentration, work with the breath or whatever the object may be, I think that's really important. And I think it's forgotten. I think there's a lot of teachings out there where as well you just watch the mind, or you just do Dzogchen practice, or whatever it may be. So I do think that the development of samatha is really important. And of course, we work with that here. But it's equally important to lead with kindness and compassion. Mindfulness isn't just about what's happening in your head. It's not just about your experience, but seeing the contexts in which you're operating. The Buddha called it clear comprehension. You're in a room. What else is going on in the room? Are you just watching your thoughts, or can you expand your attention? Can you expand your awareness? Can you expand your heart? You know, expanding your attention, expanding your awareness is not different than expanding your heart to take in what's taking place around you. There's a problem with the practice in that working with mindfulness, we can get too self-involved. Ultimately, the goal of awareness, of mindfulness, is to lead us to that place in terms of insight, in terms of wisdom, where there's nothing that we can point to that's actually a permanent self. So we need that concentrated quality of mind to investigate internally our experience. But if that's true, if that's what we're doing, then as we move through our day and you find yourself obsessed with yourself, maybe you don't have the insight at that moment in time. But with awareness and with compassion, we can step outside ourselves, step outside our little reality in the moment, letting go of our reactions, letting go of our judgments, letting go of our fears. So all of this work, all of this practice has to be informed by compassion. Experiences come and go. Everything comes and goes. And when we truly see that, we're connected with the heart. The heart blossoms, the heart opens up. And by working with compassion, by working with the heart, it leads us to insight. The two are mutually supportive of each other. So another way of saying it, short way of saying, if you can't get your shit together, be loving and kind. If you're having a bad, fumbly morning, be loving and kind. It's easy to be the other, right? It's real easy to be the other. But just drop it and be loving and kind. And by this movement towards that, by working with awareness, by working with clarity, by working with compassion, we change who we are. We change the brain. Things in the brain. Scientists tell us things in the brain, they change. By moving towards the wholesome, by having those kind, expansive, attentive, empathetic, compassionate thoughts, it changes us. So we develop that. There's a quote that I'm just remembering, but I don't remember it exactly, but it's Stephen Levine, who was a teacher in the States. He wrote, I think he was a hospice worker. He wrote a book on death and dying. He wrote 2 or 3 books, probably in the 80s, and he passed away. But somebody said to him, and so his thing was compassion, and somebody said to him, how did you become so loving? And he said, and I misquote, but he said something like, I found all the places where I wasn't. So he found the places he saw, he was aware in those moments when his heart was contracted, when he was without love, when he was not compassionate, not empathetic, not kind. He saw those places. He saw those places. And he let them go. He worked with it, changing the brain, changing the energy body, moving to this way instead of that way. It's like when you're a kid, I don't know, or a teenager, I don't know how many of you smoked, but there's a period in maybe our teens or early 20s where you pick up the weed, you pick up the cigarette for various reasons, but mostly because your friends are doing it. And a month before, you never thought of smoking. And then the next thing you know, you're smoking. And the next thing you know, you're out of cigarettes and you're going out and you're buying more cigarettes. And then one day you decide to quit and you quit. You have the cravings, but you quit, you let it go. And then one day you're not thinking about it anymore. So the things we choose, right? The things we choose create these pathways in us. And we get stuck in those pathways. So when we're not compassionate, when we're not empathetic, when we're not kind, when we're angry, when we're small-minded, and we choose those, we're creating that pathway. When we catch ourselves and we let go, because what else are you going to do? Burn for another 20 years? We let go and we move to empathy and compassion, and we start to develop that. We start to develop that pathway, and it changes us. It changes us. It's gradual, but that's the practice. The development of wholesome states, wholesome activities. And as long as we're making those choices, as long as we're connecting and reconnecting and recommitting with the intention to move towards those, we will develop those pathways. And it's a choice every day. It's a choice every day. So, as we start the year, as we move forward into 2024, we just continue to recommit ourselves to moving towards the wholesome, to moving towards the kind, moving towards the compassionate, the empathetic. Generosity of spirit, giving of ourselves, giving of our time, giving of our heart, giving of our attention. Slowly, we open to the world. And we let go of that contraction. That keeps us, that holds us in suffering. Opening up, opening up, opening up. And when we make those choices in the day, it's much easier when we meditate to find that quietness, to find that stillness. There's the non-contracted, the non-self-involved heart. That's where it rests. That's where it finds itself. In openness and in compassion, there's a great stillness that's there as well. We're not in conflict. We're not in conflict.